The aroma of freshly brewed coffee swirled in the air, a scent that had become synonymous with Sarah and Mark's Sunday mornings. For 3 years, their routine had been as comforting as the first sip. Sarah, buried in the crossword, Mark, sketching in his worn leather notebook, both bathed in the warm glow of the morning sun filtering through their apartment window. Their love story was the kind that made people believe in soulmates, a chance encounter at a bookstore, a shared love for obscure indie films, and a connection that felt immediate and undeniable. Sarah traced the rim of her mug, a faint crease forming between her eyebrows. Lately, the comfortable silence they shared felt different. It wasn't hostile, but a subtle tension hummed beneath the surface, like a low, persistent drone. Mark, always the attentive one, noticed. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, his voice gentle. Sarah sighed. "It's just, you've been distant lately. Less present, I guess." Mark closed his notebook, his expression clouding over. "Distant? What do you mean?" "I don't know. You're working late more often, you're on your phone constantly, and when I ask you about your day, you just say busy and change the subject." He ran a hand through his hair, his usual easy smile faltering. "It's just work, Sarah. We're launching a new campaign, it's been crazy." Sarah wanted to believe him. She really did. But the doubt lingered, a tiny seed of suspicion that refused to be uprooted. The next few weeks were a blur of strained conversations and unanswered questions. Sarah found herself constantly analyzing Mark's behavior, searching for clues in his every word and gesture. She noticed the way his eyes lingered on his phone screen, the way he hesitated before answering her questions, the way he seemed to avoid her gaze. One evening, while Mark was in the shower, Sarah's curiosity got the better of her. She knew she shouldn't, but the nagging feeling in her gut wouldn't let her rest. She picked up his phone, her hands trembling slightly, and input his password, a simple combination she knew by heart. The message flashed on the screen, a name she didn't recognize, Chloe. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she tapped on the message thread. A wave of nausea washed over her as she scrolled through the conversation. Jokes, emojis, late-night chats about work, and then, something more. Hints of admiration, shared vulnerabilities, and a subtle, but undeniable, flirtation. Sarah felt her world tilt on its axis. Chloe. Who was Chloe? The shower stopped, and Sarah frantically placed the phone back on the table, her face burning with shame and betrayal. She rushed to the kitchen, pretending to be engrossed in washing dishes as Mark emerged, a towel slung around his neck. "Everything okay?" he asked. Sarah forced a smile. "Fine. Just finishing up." But inside, she was crumbling. The following days were a torturous dance of denial and suspicion. Sarah tried to act normal, but the weight of her discovery was crushing her. She lost her appetite, couldn't sleep, and found herself snapping at Mark over the smallest things. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. One evening, as they were getting ready for bed, she confronted him. "Mark, who's Chloe?" He froze, his face paling. "Chloe? She's a colleague. We're working on the campaign together." "I saw your messages, Mark," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Don't lie to me." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Okay, look, it's not what you think." "Then what is it?" Sarah demanded, tears welling up in her eyes. He hesitated, then confessed. "We've been spending a lot of time together, working late. We've connected. But it's nothing serious, Sarah. I swear." "Nothing serious?" Sarah repeated, her voice rising. "You've been flirting with another woman behind my back for weeks, and you call it nothing serious?" He tried to take her hand, but she recoiled. "I messed up, Sarah. I know I did. But I love you. You're the only person I want to be with. I'll stop talking to her, I promise." Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth in his eyes. He was sorry. But the trust was broken, the damage was done. "I can't, Mark," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I can't do this anymore." He stared at her, his eyes filled with disbelief. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm saying we're done." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. The comfortable apartment, the Sunday morning routines, the memories they had built together, all of it seemed to crumble around them. Mark pleaded, begged, promised to change. He said it was a mistake, a moment of weakness, that he didn't mean for it to happen. But Sarah couldn't forgive him. The thought of him with Chloe, even just talking, exchanging glances, was unbearable. The next few days were a blur of packing boxes and tearful goodbyes. Sarah moved into a small apartment across town, a sterile, unfamiliar space that echoed with her loneliness. She missed Mark terribly, the way he made her laugh, the way he knew her so well. But the pain of his betrayal was too raw, too deep. Mark tried to stay in contact, calling and texting constantly. But Sarah couldn't bring herself to answer. She needed space, time to heal, to figure out who she was without him. One day, she received a package. Inside, she found his worn leather notebook, the one he always used for sketching. On the first page, he had drawn a portrait of her, her face illuminated by the morning sun, a coffee mug in her hand. Beneath the drawing, he had written, "I'll never stop regretting this. I love you, Sarah." Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the notebook to her chest. She knew he meant it. But love wasn't always enough. Sometimes, the damage was too great to repair. Months passed. Sarah threw herself into her work, reconnecting with old friends, and exploring new hobbies. She started painting again, something she had abandoned years ago. Slowly, she began to heal. One evening, she received a message from Mark. He had moved to a different city, taken a new job. He said he was doing better, but he still thought about her every day. He wished her happiness, and hoped that one day, she could forgive him. Sarah stared at the message for a long time. She realized that she had already started to forgive him, not for his sake, but for her own. Holding on to anger and resentment was exhausting, and it was preventing her from moving on. She replied to his message, "I hope you find happiness too, Mark." It wasn't a reconciliation, but it was a closure. Acknowledging the past, forgiving the pain, and finally, freeing herself to embrace the future. The memory of their love, once a source of so much joy, had become a bittersweet reminder that even the most perfect relationships can crumble under the weight of betrayal. And sometimes, the only way to move forward is to let go. Edit.